Hello there, welcome to News Across Nigeria, where we bring you what's happening in the 36 states of the Nigerian Federation, crisscrossing the 6 geopolitical zones. I am Olumide Macaulay, and thank you for joining us. On the program today, the Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency visits internally displaced persons in Yobe State. The transport sector in Lagos gets a boost as Governor Ambode commissions the Ikorodu Bus Rapid Transport Scheme. And Osun State focuses on prevention of female genital mutilation. We begin in the northeastern part of the country. Victims of the militant insurgency there may soon go back to their homes. That's the good news. The Presidential Committee, mandated with this responsibility, is already working out the modalities towards the rehabilitation and reconstruction of the affected communities. The Director General of NEMA, that's the National Emergency Management Agency, Sani Sidi, disclosed this at the Pompompari camp in Damaturu, the Yobe State capital, while giving relief materials to the victims.
These are victims of the insurgency in the northeastern part of the country. While many try to make do with their living conditions and the little support they get from government and non-governmental organizations, their real dream is to go back to their homes. As the displaced persons yearn to resume their normal lives, the Presidential Committee charged with the responsibility of ensuring that it happens has begun identifying communities destroyed during attacks and their immediate needs.
Our synergy and collaboration between NEMA, SEMA, and by extension the state government become very, very necessary. Part of the reason why we are here is in fulfillment of our obligation as an agency to support the effort of the state government, which has been widely acknowledged for the management of the internally displaced persons.
Authorities in Yobe State thanked the National Emergency Management Agency for the gesture and assured the agency that relief materials will be distributed evenly to the IDPs. The Yobe State Deputy Governor says the state government was forced to establish IDP camps to house the displaced persons, an initiative which has so far gulfed 800 million naira. He appealed to philanthropists, individuals, corporate bodies and non-governmental organizations to also lend a helping hand to IDPs in Yobe and beyond.
You may be aware that since 2010, the Yobe State has been doing everything humanly possible to address the menace of Boko Haram insurgency. Lives were lost and properties, both public and private, worth billions of naira were destroyed. The Director General may wish to know that as a result of the destruction caused by the Boko Haram insurgency, many communities were displaced from their homes and fled to other places, seeking for shelter and safety.
Both men then led the way to visit the IDPs at the Pompomari camp in Damaturu, the state capital, which houses about 4,211 persons. Since it was opened, Pompomari camp has recorded 38 beds and 7 deaths.
Now, the insurgency not only affected that part of the country, but also in Adamawa State, where the weather wreaked some havoc. Rice farmers in Adamawa, whose farms were either ravaged by terrorist attacks or flooding during the last cropping season, have been given some compensation by the state government. The farmers, who form 85% of the population in this part of the state, lost their farms and their produce to terrorists who overran their farms and displaced them from their communities. Concerned about the situation, the Adamawa State government has distributed 5,000 tons of fertilizer to the rice farmers, in addition to loans to fund their farming activities.
The Adamawa State government has seen these twin problems of insurgency and flooding, having denied farmers the opportunities to produce during the rainy season, as a just reason to scale up dry season farming. The most northern, most local government area in the state is still under threat of insurgency, so people cannot go outside villages and the towns to do any agriculture. But we believe that in the next week or so, with the advocacy and enlightenment that we are undertaking, people are going to go out and try to do some dry season farming. We also had the problem of flooding, especially along the Benue Valley, when the Lagdo hydro dam in Cameroon released waters. This flooding didn't affect just Adamawa State, but downstream to Taraba and even parts of Benue State. So as a result of the flooding also, a lot of farmers who had planted their fields had their crops submerged by the flood water, and so they have missed out on the rainy season production this year.
And now joining us from Yola via telephone to discuss more on this matter relating to Adamawa State and the situation they're facing is the chairman, Rice Farmers Association, the Adamawa State chapter, Abdullahi Tafida. Thank you for joining us on News Across Nigeria.
You're welcome.
If you can hear me, Abdullahi, let me go on. Sorry about what you're facing in Adamawa State. It's the terrorist activities on one hand, which the government is fighting ably, but also the environmental challenges. How have you been coping?
Well, with all difficulties, we are trying our best to see that we can be able to feed this country and stop importing rice. This is our own target. Our aim is to see that Nigeria reduce rice production by at least 60% within 2 years, and maybe by 80 to 90% within 4 years. This is our own ambition. And I'm sure in Adamawa State, we are willing, because all the required input that can produce rice is available. We have the water, we have a fertile land, we have the manpower. The only problem we have is very minor. We are saying that most of our farmers are children and they need at least some assistance from the government. This is what actually we are looking for, because a children farmer may not have enough to raise up this farm and get an input that can be able to market. And if we limit him only to what a subsistence farmer, where he can be able to feed himself alone, the economy may not change.
How far do you think the 5,000 tons of fertilizer the government is donating will go in helping to alleviate this problem?
Well, it's a welcome innovation, but it's not donating. They're sending it as selling it as a subsidized price.
Okay.
They're subsidizing, it's not donating, they're subsidizing it. And I'm sure it will help in no small matter in seeing that rice is grown in Adamawa State. Adamawa is in a grain state, and the major crop grown in Adamawa is rice. You may interest to know that up to now in Adamawa State, nobody can tell you that there's paddy imported from any other state in this country to Adamawa. Rather, most of the states in the Federation are coming to Adamawa to collect rice, like Imo, Anambra, Enugu, Botako, Lagos, Kano, and the rest. They all come to Adamawa to get paddy. So you know that Adamawa is a Nigerian state, and the major crop is rice.
Mr. Tafida, that's great news. If Adamawa State is so strong in the production of rice, and how can you consolidate on that strength and help to build the economy further?
Well, the problem we are facing as of now in Nigeria as a whole towards agricultural policy, most of the government policy is laid on rain-fed agriculture. Fed agriculture will not take us to anywhere. We need at least to consolidate our irrigated agriculture, because that's the most assuring type of agriculture you can do in this country. But most of the government policy is centered on rail-fed agriculture, which is not assuring. But if the government would articulate itself, particularly in Adamawa, we have a lot of rivers, alluvial soil along River Benue Valley. I'm sure, I'm telling you that Adamawa cannot compete not only the most disturbed region, but maybe the whole north, and possibly send down to the south.
Now, the flooding on the other hand, is a major problem. The environmental challenges. I understand that dam waters from Cameroon constitute a major worry. What is being done about this?
Well, so far so good. The flooding is an annual phenomenon. But what I will suggest the government is that I'm not sure that Lado Dam is the flooding in Adamawa, but it increased the flooding in Adamawa State. Adamawa have small rivers that are carrying their water into River Benue. And these small rivers are from the top hills. When the water comes, it comes with full force. So it takes a lot of alluvial soil down into the river. The river has now almost silted to half. In those days, you have to jump before you enter River Benue, but now you can walk across the River Benue. So you see how level the river has been silted. So what I'm suggesting to the government is that if they can find a means of making a buffer dam that can be able to checkmate this river as well as the flood from that dam to solve the problem and so on. Not only Adamawa, up to Taraba, Benue, up to Kogi.
And we know it's very capital intensive. We surely hope the government is listening. As far as Adamawa State is concerned, we have a new agriculture minister, and the other ministers that have been appointed, whose portfolios have been read just yesterday. Mr. Tafida, what in specifics do you think can be done to help boost Adamawa State's progress as far as agriculture is concerned and the environment is concerned? What should the government do? National policy, state policy?
First and foremost, what we want is that, number one, let the government articulate its attention into irrigated agriculture. This is the most important thing that will help us. If we go on irrigated agriculture, we are sure of the yield, the product, and everything. But everything outside that, I doubt if we can be able to feed ourselves for the coming 20, 30 years. So what I'm suggesting is that let them at least pay attention to irrigated agriculture. We have a project initiated by President when he was the chairman of PTF, General Buhari, when he was the chairman of PTF. We call it Church Irrigation Project. That place covers almost 5,000 hectares of land. And it has started, but now it has been abandoned. If that project alone is completed, only God knows the quantum or tonnage of rice that can be produced in Adamawa State. Then we have the Benue Valley, taking from Golam up to Wadu, Kutino, Zekin, and the rest. This is a flat land on River Benue Bay that you don't need even fertilizer in those places. So the potentialities are there, plenty of it. But the unfortunate thing is that we have to change our attitudes towards rail-fed irrigation agriculture. And why I'm insisting on government for that is that a peasant farmer may not have all with us to at least develop an irrigated farm. Secondly, the land policy of the government is another handicap. If the government should be able to earmark some areas that is good for agricultural development, they can compensate the owner or at least develop it and allow the farmers to come and operate.
Thank you, Mr. Tafida. That's all we have time for. And as you were saying, agriculture is a mainstay in Adamawa State, and actually that is what even the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is focusing on. They're talking about diversifying the economy, taking away from leaning on oil to other resources such as agriculture. So you're barking up the right tree. And Mr. Tafida also spoke about the fact that Adamawa State is a rice production powerhouse. If properly supported by policy and investment by the government, it will be exporting rice and supplying the rest of the country with rice, amongst other things. So many thanks to you, sir, for coming on News Across Nigeria. In other news, but staying in that region, troops of the Nigerian army have repelled an attempt by the Boko Haram insurgents to recapture Gwoza, town of Borno State. A statement issued by the acting director, Army Public Relations, Colonel Sani Usman, says that the troops were able to clear Boko Haram terrorist camps at Onwalema, Malamiri, and Bale. The statement adds that similarly in Gwoza axis, troops of the 26th Task Force Brigade have also destroyed terrorist camps in Tripkota and Gidangachi. The insurgents reportedly stormed the town in large numbers in the early hours of Friday and unleashed havoc, but troops on the ground responded with firepower and repelled them. Anti-aircraft artillery and AK-47 weapons are among those recovered from the assailants in a battle that lasted till nearly 8 a.m. today. You're watching news across Nigeria. Coming up, the Osun State government pays attention to female genital mutilation. Stay with us.